Of course, darling, you know I mean, you know you wanna run with the cars. Of course, darling, I'm a fallen angel. That is what you can see, that no one can against me. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I'm gonna give you a shield, I'm gonna give you a coat. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that we can make our feet. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I want some coat for my black woman. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. Thank you, darling, that is what you can see, that we're gonna run away. Of course, darling, that they want to come after us, but we're gonna go away. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that they are all after us, but we're gonna run with the car and we're gonna forget about them. Of course, darling, I'm a fallen angel, that is what you can see. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that the fire is so big, but I don't wanna be there. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that life is necessary, darling, that is what you can see. Of course, darling, life is necessary. There are so many people who want to take lives away, but I'm not there. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that you know what I wear. Of course, darling, you know where I am. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I don't wanna reincarnate nowhere. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that if they want to drown us in the mud, we are gonna swim and go away. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that you know what I wear. Of course, you know where to find me. Of course, darling, if they wanna drown us, we're gonna go away. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that if they wanna drown us in the mud, we're gonna swim and go away. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that there are many people after us, but they can't against us. We're gonna run with the cars like fallen angels. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I don't want your heart, I don't wanna reincarnate nowhere. Of course, darling, you know there is many people trying to reincarnate. Of course, in the belly from some mom, and they want to reincarnate in the belly from your wife. Of course, they are crazy. Of course, darling, you know where to find me. Of course, darling, you know where I am. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I move like Superman. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. But if you want to give your heart to someone, you're in your right, and I'm not gonna stop you. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I have my coat here. Of course, darling, I'm gonna give you a coat so you don't feel hard. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I'm here. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I have black Danny here. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us, that I know how to move. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that they wanna shoot me, but they can't. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. You know I'm like a fallen angel. You know I'm like Superman. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. That you know why. Of course, darling, I already told it 1,000 times. Of course, darling, they are throwing their towers and they are going after the oil and they want to expel the Jews and things like those. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, and that is what they are doing the whole time. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. Now we have Cold War, of course, darling, but it's the same. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that we need life, that we need our life, of course, darling, that is what you can see. You know we can run with the cars, and I'm gonna run like a fallen angel, like a Superman, of course, darling, and I'm gonna give you a code with our kids, and we're gonna survive, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I don't wanna reincarnate nowhere, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that there are many people trying to reincarnate and hurt you, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that they are trying to reincarnate in the belly from your wife and things like those, of course, darling, and I don't believe in that, of course, darling, I wanna keep my life, I wanna keep my life, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I wanna keep my life and my heart, of course, darling, I don't wanna make a gift to no one. Of course, darling, I was playing with my girlfriend, you know that we were there, of course, we were making Diablo moves, of course, darling, that is what you can see, and they fall dead by our side, of course, darling, that is what you can see, but okay, I had to leave her, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that so is soccer here, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I was making Diablo moves, and they soccer for death by my side, and of course, darling, and I had to leave her, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that my kids are the devil, of course, darling, that is what you can see, of course, darling, we are fallen angels, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that they want to take everything out from us, of course, darling, that is what you can see, of course, darling, that is what you can see, so is life, that is what you can see, that I'm the most wanted everywhere, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I'm the most wanted, they are all after me, of course, darling, they are haunting me, of course, darling, that is what you can see, of course, darling, they take out like fallen angels, like Superman, of course, darling, and swim and go away, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that I don't wanna reincarnate nowhere, of course, darling, that is what you can see, of course, darling, that is what you can see, that they are people, they want our lives, they want our hearts, they want our lives, of course, darling, what is gonna happen when we have a new Jesus, that everyone is gonna give her heart to him, of course, they are crazy, of course, darling, someone that want all our lives, all our kids, of course, they are crazy, and I'm not gonna allow it, of course, darling, that is what you can see. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that you know that I'm a fallen angel, that I work like Superman, of course, darling, because they are the whole time trying to throw the towers, send people to get the sources, expel the Jews and things like those. No one called war, but everything to expel the Jews. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that they wanna cross in the Middle East, and that them this cross reclaim all the lives and all the kids and all the things. Of course, darling, they are crazy that you're gonna give your heart to God or something like those. Of course, they are crazy, darling. They want all kids, they want all lives, they are crazy, darling. I don't want nothing, I just want what's mine. Of course, darling, that is what you can see. And then give a call to the girls who need it. Of course, darling, we're gonna run with the cars like fallen angels. of course, darling, that is what you can see, and that is what we're gonna do. And we're gonna run with the cars like fallen angels and play Superman, and we are gonna swim and go away. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us. Of course, darling, I don't wanna hurt no one, I don't wanna reincarnate nowhere. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that my kids are my legacy. Of course, darling, I don't want to be a cross every claim all the kids and all the lives on the world. Of course, that is just crazy. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that they left little devils and little messiahs. Of course, darling, take the code and keep it. Of course, darling, we are fallen angels. Of course, darling, that is what you can see, that no one can against us, and that we're gonna keep our life. Of course, darling.